Chapter 16. Morgenstern. As soon as they reach the stinking swamp of chaos that had been a neighborhood, Isaac sends a group of officers to begin walling off the area with caution tape. It won't do much to keep the monstrosities in, but protocol is protocol, and any kind of rule she can hold on to at this point is a gemstone in her eyes. While they're doing that, she and the rest of the officers begin combing the area. They proceed slowly through the muck. While the officers focus on the surroundings, she focuses on them. In a situation like this, the greatest enemy can be one's own emotions, and she's not about to watch the mission go to shit over a little stray adrenaline. But the officers seem to be keeping their cool. She relaxes a bit and allows her attention to wander to the magnificent horrors that surround them. Everything is covered in organic matter. Fleshy roots climb up the sides of houses like ivy, prying boards loose and digging their way into domiciles, presumably in search of food. The plants and trees are starting to be assimilated like the dryad. She steps on a dandelion that lets out a tiny scream and tries to wriggle out from under her boot. She lifts her foot and watches it pry itself free of the ground and trundle away, wondering what kind of lunatic god would allow such a circus to exist. Her radio crackles. "Chief, I think you might want to take a look at this." She responds. "Location?" 300 west. She heads that way, followed by two others. As she approaches, over the dissonant song of the corpomulta, she can hear another, more melodic sound. "Do you hear that?" asks one of her companions. "Sounds like Bob Marley." He's right. "One Love?" says another. "It's called People Get Ready," says the chief, turning to follow the sound. As they reach the street marked 300 west, the music stops abruptly. From a few houses down, they hear the sound of someone shouting, followed by another, calmer voice, though they can't make out what's being said. They pick up the pace, jogging in the direction of the voices. They reach a large white house overgrown with fleshy tendrils and stop. Surrounding the building is a menagerie of horrors. Thorny lumps, tentacled bushes, a few tumorous rats, and a small crowd of infected humans, all meandering aimlessly through the yard. On the porch sits a man and a dog matching the description given by the teenagers earlier that morning. The man's hand rests on a large boombox, presumably the source of the music. An officer stands on the sidewalk directly opposite, gun raised and pointed at the man, who turns to greet the newcomers. "Howdy, friends," he says cheerfully. His face is obscured by a dark hood, beneath the folds of which can be seen a nasty lump of corpomulta similar to the one sported by his mutant dog. Isaacs addresses her officer. "Put the gun down, Peterson." The officer hesitates, but complies, holstering her weapon and standing up straight. The man on the porch reaches for a crutch and uses it to pull himself off the ground. As he stands, limping toward the chief, Peterson reaches again for her weapon, but Isaacs whistles at her and approaches the stranger, meeting him on the edge of the lawn. The man extends a hand, but the chief ignores it, staring intently. The man drops his hand. "Was wondering when y'all would show up," he says casually. "Who are you?" asks the chief. The man frowns in thought as if he's just been asked something profoundly philosophical. "And that's not the question you want to ask," he says finally. The officer behind the chief speaks up. "How are you alive?" A look of bafflement falls across the man's face. He looks over his shoulder at the people wandering around the yard. "We're all alive here." "How are you coherent?" the chief clarifies. "Oh, that," says the man. "I honestly don't know." He laughs gleefully. "Sure as hell glad that I am, though, tell you what." The chief takes a cautious step back from the man and gestures to the creatures roaming the yard. "What's going on here?" "It's a garden party, obviously," the man responds. "We were enjoying a little music before your friend aimed a gun at me." Isaac's eyes dart over to the officer on the sidewalk before returning to the man's infected face. "Can you blame her?" "Can I? Hell, I can do whatever I want here." The man laughs wildly. "Officer," says Isaacs, "take your gun back out." The officer obliges happily, aiming it at the stranger. Whoa, 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 now hold on a second," the man pouts. "This is the air around here, I swear. I'm not wearing a gas mask, see? I mean you no harm." Isaacs does not respond, and the officer keeps her pistol raised. The man sighs. "Tim," he says. "My name's Tim." One of the infected humans approaches the boombox and bends down, turning it back on. The music blasts in the infected's face, lets out a shriek, and topples backward into the grass. "Fell over!" yells another infected. "Oof!" cries another. As if directed by some unseen tethers, the rest of the infected turn their gaze toward Tim and the chief. Tim shrugs at Isaacs as if to say, "What can you do?" as the creatures all begin to descend upon the officers. Shots ring out as the mutants charge. The chief unholsters her gun and fires at Tim, but he ducks out of the way and runs off toward the rear of the house. She decides not to chase after him, focusing instead on the swarm of zombies closing in. She fires at one of them, hitting it right between the eyes. The other officers take on the rest, and the yard is soon littered with the creatures' motionless bodies. She relaxes a bit, stepping toward the house after Tim. Something grabs at her leg and she yells, aiming her gun at the reanimated corpse and firing. The infected cries out as the wretched brown fluid begins leaking from its eye socket. Some of the other fall and begin stirring as well. Little tendrils crawl out from the bullet holes, healing the wounds. "Double tap!" shouts one of the officers, aiming his rifle point blank against the skull of an infected and firing. The rest of them follow suit, exterminating the infected humans once and for all and sending the less courageous lumps and rats fleeing. Once the area is clear, the chief leads them onward around the side of the house in pursuit of Tim.